Hello again, and welcome back to our series on the 8 parts of speech in English. Today we're going to be talking about verbs in all their majesty. In part 1, we talked about the noun, a part of speech that represents a person, place, or thing. And I said that nouns are perhaps the most basic part of English grammar. Well, if there's any competition for that, it's only because verbs are the other very basic piece of English grammar. In fact, to make a sentence in English, all you need is one noun and one verb. But, like nouns, verbs are a little more complicated than they first appear. To start things off simply, though, let's begin by saying that all verbs are some kind of action. Anything that you do is a verb. If you run or think or play, those are all verbs. And just like nouns, verbs are amazingly important to understand, and they can be used in a lot of different ways. This video will cover transitive and intransitive verbs, linking verbs, and helping verbs. Verbs are generally divided into 2 categories: action verbs, which can be transitive or intransitive, and then everything else, which includes the linking and helping verbs. Now, you may be wondering, hey, didn't you just say about 30 seconds ago that all verbs are a kind of action? And yes, I did. But when we talk about verbs, we divide them into verbs that are expressing an active action versus verbs that express a more passive state of being. We'll talk more about this when we talk about linking and helping verbs, but it's important to remember that while jumping and climbing and swimming are all excellent examples of actions and would be quote-unquote action verbs, verbs like is or have or will are also actions, but they express a subject's ability or intentions, and thus aren't quite so easily categorized. Okay, with all that said, let's start with transitive and intransitive verbs, the quote-unquote action verbs. The basic difference between them is that with a transitive verb, the action is transferred from the subject to some object. For example, in the sentence, I make a video, the noun video is receiving the action of the verb make. This is a transitive verb where the action of the subject I affects the object video in some way. For intransitive verbs, there is no transfer of the action from subject to object. Let's look at this sentence. I am walking to the beach. In this example, the fact that I am walking doesn't affect the beach at all. This is an intransitive verb, a verb where the action of the subject doesn't affect the object. Think of it this way. The beach would still exist if I did not walk to it, but this video would not exist if I did not make it. An easy way to distinguish between the two is to ask who or what the verb in the sentence is affecting. If there is an answer, the verb is transitive, and if not, the verb is intransitive. For example, the sentence, I am going to the store. In this case, the verb phrase is am going, and if I ask, am going what? There isn't a clear answer. To the store is a where, not a what. Because of this, we know that this is an intransitive verb. By contrast, the sentence, he gives his dog a treat, shows us a transitive verb. We identify the verb, gives, and then ask, gives what? Well, he gives a treat. Fortunately, linking and helping verbs are pretty straightforward. A linking verb connects the subject of the sentence to a word that describes their state of being. For example, my dog is adorable. In this sentence, the verb is links the subject, my dog, with the adjective, adorable, which is her state of being. Linking verbs are often some form of to be, like is or was or will be, etc. Or some form of to seem, like seems, seeming, and so on. Or some form of to become, is becoming, becomes, has become. You get the idea. Helping verbs, as the name implies, help other verbs by including information about time or possibility. For example, I am going to the store. In this sentence, both am and going are verbs, with am acting as a helping verb to explain when I go to the store. In this case, the present tense, rather than the past tense was going or the future will be going. Similarly, verbs like can, might, and so on tell about possibility. For example, I might go to the store has 2 verbs, might and go, with might acting as a helping verb to describe the likelihood of me going. Remember that helping verbs cannot stand alone in a sentence, so if you need to determine if a verb is a helping verb, take any other verbs next to it out of the sentence and see if that sentence still makes sense. If it doesn't, the verb you're looking at is a helping verb. Hopefully, this has been a helpful introduction to verbs in all of their forms. As always, leave comments and questions below, and tune in next time for an exploration of pronouns. Thanks for watching!